Here we go. The biggest debate we have in my comment section is always about the English language. Who has the right claim to it? Who is correct when they speak it? All the differences in American English and British English. Who's wrong? And y'all's default answer is always, well, it's named after the English, therefore we're right. And I always say, I don't care. So today we're going to be reacting to where did English come from and the origins of the English language. I'm going to step out on a limb and say that English actually derives from... hell, I don't even know. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, DM me any video requests you have over on Instagram, like the video, and let's get into the video. Here we go. Excuse you, are you alright?
When we talk about English, we often think of it as a single language. But what do the dialects spoken in dozens of countries around the world have in common with each other? Or with the writings of Chaucer? And how are any of them related to the strange words in Beowulf? The answer is that, like most languages, English has evolved through generations of speakers, undergoing major changes over time.
Okay, so I don't think that's necessarily talking about how it was created. He's talking about the evolution of it. So we still have to, again, listen and see where it came from. Who the heck is Beowulf?
Undoing these changes, we can trace the language from the present day back to its ancient roots.
Huh.
While modern English shares many similar words with Latin-derived Romance languages, like French and Spanish, most of those words were not originally part of it. Instead, they started coming into the language with the Norman invasion of England in 1066. When the French-speaking Normans conquered England and became its ruling class, they brought their speech with them, adding a massive amount of French and Latin vocabulary to the English language previously spoken there.
Okay, so y'all were already speaking English then. I mean, it basically mixed with, like he just said, Latin and French language whenever you're invaded by Normandy, but again, you were already speaking a form of English. So we have to go even further back.
Today, we call that language Old English. This is the language of Beowulf. It probably doesn't look very familiar, but it might be more recognizable if you know some German.
Okay, so Beowulf, I'm assuming, was a German man. We'll have, or someone can just comment about him if you know the history of Beowulf, because I don't really know who that guy is. But again, so if Old English is the English y'all were speaking whenever you were invaded by Normandy and had your English influenced by French and Latin, if that was the Old English, then what the heck was the English before 1066? Like the ancient English or something. I wonder what, we gotta figure out what that is, because that's what I'm really interested in. Who was the first one to start speaking English from the very beginning?
It's because Old English belongs to the Germanic language family.
Germans.
First brought to the British Isles in the 5th and 6th centuries by the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. The Germanic dialects they spoke would become known as Anglo-Saxon. Viking invaders in the 8th to 11th centuries added more borrowings from Old Norse into the mix.
Okay, so I think this is getting into what I was just talking about. Whenever you think of Anglo-Saxon, though, like on the TV and like prehistoric history TV shows that I watch sometimes, I've always thought Anglo-Saxon was just like a race, you know what I mean? Like Northumbrian, that was your race. Saxon, that's your race. Viking, that was your race. I guess it was more than just that, though. Because he just said that that was the language, Anglo-Saxon.
It may be hard to see the roots of modern English underneath all the words borrowed from French, Latin, Old
German.
Norse, and other languages. But comparative linguistics can help us by focusing on grammatical structure, patterns of sound changes, and certain core vocabulary. For example, after the 6th century, German words starting with P systematically shifted to a PF sound, while their Old English counterparts kept the P unchanged. In another...
Like phone? PH? Phone? Is that German?
Words that have SK sounds in Swedish developed an SH sound in English. There are still some English words with SK, like skirt and skull, but they're direct borrowings from Old Norse that came after the SK to SH shift. These examples show us that just as the various Romance languages descended from Latin, English, Swedish, German, and many other languages descended from their own common ancestor, known as Proto-Germanic, spoken around 500 BCE. Because this historical language was never written down, we can only reconstruct it by comparing its descendants, which is possible thanks to the consistency of the changes.
Okay, that's wild. That's like a whole different ingredients into the entire smorgasbord that we've been dealing with. You have the French, you have the Latins, the Germans, he even threw in Portuguese there. And up until now, I always assumed, or we've been taught, that the origins of everything, architecture, literature, just the meaning of life in general and existence, comes from Latin. But he just said Proto-Germanic. The Germans were out here being innovative with life. That's wild.
We can even use the same process to go back one step further and trace the origins of Proto-Germanic to a language called proto-indo-european.
Okay, proto-indo-european. So I'm assuming that y'all had, what do you want to call them? Natives? We call our native people Native Americans, and I guess the Native Canadians, because we all had indigenous people. So y'all's indigenous people were Indo-European, which, like history goes everywhere, they were probably conquered or kicked off the land by someone else.
About 6,000 years ago, on the Pontic Steppe, in modern-day Ukraine and Russia.
Russia?
This is the reconstructed ancestor of the Indo-European family that includes nearly all languages historically spoken in Europe.
So, basically, English, and when he says English on this little robot guy, he's not talking about the language, he's talking about y'all, the people. So, the language English comes from the Irish, the Greek, the French, the German, the Swedish, the Russian, and of course the English too. The English didn't invent English. In fact, like he just said, the Indo whatever, indigenous European, and then it went to the Proto-German, and then it went to the anglo-saxon, which was influenced by the Norse people. So it's like so many, that's crazy. One language.
As well as large parts of southern and western Asia.
Asia?
And though it requires a bit more work, we can find the same systematic similarities or correspondences between related words in different Indo-European branches. Comparing English with Latin, we see that English has T where Latin has D, and F where Latin has P at the start of words. Some of English's more distant relatives include Hindi, Persian, and the Celtic languages it displaced in what is now Britain. Proto-Indo-European itself descended from an even more ancient language, but unfortunately, this is as far back as historical and archaeological evidence will allow us to go.
Yeah. Oh, dang it! Can you imagine hearing before the Proto-Indo-European, like, people speak, like, if they had just, like, old film, how they have on YouTube, like, movies from the 50s or the silent movies from the 30s? Imagine if you got to hear someone speaking what came before Proto-Indo-European. It wouldn't even sound, that's what I was saying, like, the English y'all speak, the English I speak, doesn't even probably make sense to someone from, even just to go far back as the anglo-saxon English. That's wild.
Many mysteries remain just out of reach, such as whether there might be a link between Indo-European and other major language families.
Excuse you.
And the nature of the languages spoken in Europe prior to its arrival. But the amazing fact remains that nearly 3 billion people around the world, many of whom cannot understand each other, are nevertheless speaking the same words, shaped by 6,000 years of history.
So, is he saying we don't understand because of the accents, or what? Because half the time I can't understand y'all, but I know you're speaking English.
Around the world, many of whom cannot understand each other, are nevertheless speaking the same words, shaped by 6,000 years of history.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh, that's wild. Okay, so that puts to rest this debate we always have with each other. Favour, we created the English language. Well, no you didn't. As he just explained, it basically comes, I say the word 3 generations, but I know it's not generations. Basically three major steps in the creation of what we know as the English language, but we don't even know the origins before the Indo-Europeans. And that's as far back as we know. So, ugh, that's wild. I wonder where those kind of people came from. Like, who were the Indo-Europeans? I know our Native Americans, but what were y'all's type of people? And what happened to them? That was a mind blow. If you learned something, like the video, subscribe if you're new here, check out my other culture content like this, and DM me any video requests you have over on Instagram. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!